no big deal. And so what on the Star Citizen side? What are you like most excited by? What's the part of it that you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I love the Wing Commander games, and just the dogfighting, but I'm really probably most excited about the exploration side of it. Getting out there and seeing things, and when I get to my actual list of questions here that I've been scribbling out, got something there, but yeah, try to be a little organized, but
Very
yeah,
cool.
that's something that that I'm looking forward to. Not just because Wing Commander is great, but it's straight. It's a scripted
Right.
event. You go out, you do the mission. You're not really seeing anything, but either the debris of the other guy's ship or the debris of your own ship after you failed to eject, as you
Right.
thought you
Right.
could hang on for one more second.
Yeah. Well, no, no. I mean, well, we got Squadron 42 if you want so you definitely get the Wing Commander experience of Squadron 42, but the Star Citizen side of it is like the bigger universe. It's like the
Oh,
idea
absolutely, yeah.
when you watch like for me, kid, I watched Star Wars, and then you were like thinking it would be cool to be Han Solo, going where you want and doing shady deals or whatever it was,
Right.
whatever you
Well,
were in the universe.
and similar, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, member of the 501st, but something that also really got me is I'm also a big Firefly fan. In fact, I didn't even realize it, but today I put on my Blue Sun shirt.
There you go.
But
There's a lot of Firefly fans that are backers of Star Citizen.
that's right. But one thing I think about is the episode where I think it's title is Out of Gas. And again, I'm sure somebody on the chat roll is Wikipediaing it right now if they don't know off the top of your head, where they take the long way around and end up having the ship malfunction in space, and Mal's left there, and you get all his memories and everything. But that kind of idea of choosing to take that route that few people are gonna be there on, just so that you're all out there alone with nothing but you and the verse.
Right. No, I definitely think. I think like for me, if I think about like one of the reasons why I think Star Citizen works, and part of like the appeal of it is for me anyway, is the aspirational quality. It's so like you can have a sci-fi game and you can be running around, it can be first person or whatever, and it can be kind of cool, but it sort of feels sort of limited because you're sort of down. Yes, okay, so it's not a first person military shooter or something, but it's still kind of the same. And yes, it just looks like it's sort of slightly a different look, like the buildings are different or something, or your weapon's slightly different. Whereas the Star Citizen setup is really sort of the promise is you as an individual getting in a cockpit and taking off and going from planet to planet and finding different places and exploring. And it sort of feels like it just it just feels big. I mean, in essence, we're not really building out all the planets because we can't build them out in that detail, so we only have a couple of limited locations on them. But just the idea or the concept of it, like I had an interview, and everyone can apologize for repeating this, but like we go back to Star Wars. I remember, when Empire Strikes Back, and Boba Fett showed up, and this is back when he was cool, and not what later on they did, even in the third one. But they basically said he's the last of the Imperial Stormtroopers, and that was the only thing they said. And you were like, who the it wasn't not the Stormtroopers, the Shock Troopers, I can't remember, whatever it was.
Yeah, the ones who hunted down Jedi, Rogue Jedi.
Yeah, but it was, but I don't, they didn't even say he hunted down Rogue Jedi. I think in in Empire they just said he's just the last of the Imperial like shock troops or whatever. But I remember like as a kid, and it like just that phrase, and I'm like, and I was like, what does that mean? And like in my mind I'd built this whole like extra thing around it, and imagine like a whole bigger universe because of it. And I think that's kind of what works in the Star Citizen setup is that yeah, we don't build every single one of these planets out, but you get down there in your environment and we suggest it, and then you get this sense of this huge universe that you can wander around. And because it's in the cockpit and first person and you're wandering around, it just feels more personal. Like you kind of can go around to obviously a lot of planets and something like Eve, but I don't, whenever I've tried to play Eve, I've never really felt like, I sort of feel like it's cerebral, right? I feel like, okay, here's a planet and here's some numbers, here's a ship and here's some numbers, but I don't feel connected to in the way that I think you do in sort of that more first person thing. So I think that's one of the things that hopefully is, I mean, for me anyway, that's what I feel like is part of the appeal is the sense of this bigger world out there to adventure around and do what you want to do in it, whether it's explore or trade or be a mercenary or be a pirate or whatever.
Absolutely, and I think one of the other big appeals for me is also the idea of the ship as a character, which again goes back to both the Firefly and like the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. Is that whole idea is that you can upgrade your ship how you want it. You can put the skin on it. It is an NPC in itself, and it is part of your experience as a character. It is not just that little blip that you fly around in that really has no personality of its own.
Yeah, no, totally, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part. And then I guess the other thing is, and this goes on to things that, like, for me personally, one of the things I'm most excited about, and now we actually have the constellation in the engine, so we got to hook up some of the functionality that will enable this properly. But that idea of actually being inside the ship while you're flying around, like even while you're in combat, or you and three of your friends on the constellation, and you come out of a jump point, and you're getting attacked, and you turn to the friend to your side and says, "Get in the turret." And gets out of the your co-pilot seat, runs back, gets into the seat of the turret. It goes, raises up, the top armor things open out, the turret comes out and deploys, and you've got one of your friends running the turret, and you're flying the ship. Maybe your other friend goes to the other turret, and someone else runs in the P-52. And you've got the whole Millennium Falcon thing where it's like you're fighting and people are coming in and don't get cocky, kid, kind of thing. So it's
absolutely.
I think that level of fidelity hasn't been there before, and that's one of the things that I think really kind of excites me, because it just makes it feel a bit more visceral, and it doesn't because a lot of like even stuff that do great like Battlefield or whatever, a lot of the vehicular stuff still is kind of third person, so you're still outside it. So I sort of feel like that sense of being able to get up and move around a ship as you're flying around, I think is incredibly powerful and immersive.
Yep. So if you don't mind, I showed you earlier some questions. I figure I better get to it. Otherwise, we'll sit here and talk about how much we love Star Citizen and run out of time.
No, I'm biased, obviously, but go on.
Really?
Yeah.
I would hope so. If you're not, there's probably a little bit of trouble behind the scenes. Okay, first question is, you've talked about kind of how the setting that you're basing off of the UEE, and you've got Earth that kind of has a facsimile to Rome, and you've got Terra kind of as Byzantium, or Constantinople, whatever you want to call it. And so I wondered, depending on not only where you're taking missions from, but also necessarily like what ship you fly. Because if you read in like with the Origin ships, how they've moved to Terra, and now they're facing higher tariffs, from Earth. Will that affect your experience in gameplay? Will you see some of that based off of the politics going on within the UEE itself?
No, most definitely. So I mean, part of the idea with why we based it that way is we actually wanted to almost model or simulate like kind of the fall of Rome, so to speak, but it's not really the fall of Rome; it's the fall of the UEE, where, as eventually in live game terms, we will eventually have the UEE break into sort of the eastern and western components, just like it did in ancient Rome. And you'll definitely see, you'll see the effect of it in tariffs and kind of generally unhappiness. I mean, that's kind of the point. That's why we've been running those seeds of it, because that will generate a whole bunch of extra sort of intrigue and missions. And so we just think it's a more interesting environment to set the game in. I mean, I was kind of like, at one point I kind of wanted to sort of do a privateer game, which is sort of the in the Wing Commander universe, but in some ways, not being in the Wing Commander universe in what we're doing in Star Citizen is kind of liberating, because we got to essentially construct a universe. We were using a template of a time that really, like, a lot of things changed, and there's a lot of possibility, because in this it's like you want to be able to do a lot of things, and you don't want it to be a very sort of rigid structure, right? So you want to have like corruption, and you want to have different factions, and even infighting inside this big empire. So you're definitely going to see the effect of politics, and in some ways I think we're going to try and have some stuff for the players to do that will also inform some of the stuff we do in the games, that are kind of almost like, so we'll see some stuff out, and depending on what the players will do, that could kind of affect some of what the politics stuff's happening on. I mean, we were talking, right, Dave, which about the about a kind of a political system inside UEE, where the actual players themselves, depending if they're a certain status,
right, could vote for senators.
Could vote for senators, and different senators will change out on different planets based on what the actual people in the game are voting for.
Right. If they elect somebody new, he might enact, it might be on a policy of like isolationism, for example.
So think about it as an in-fiction way, like you could go, hey, community, do you want to have more of this and more of that, right? And that's like the non-in-fiction way. The in-fiction way is there's elections in the universe and the people in the empire, but the people that have voting rights basically vote for the senator that's a proponent of more trade or more war, basically.
Okay, and then kind of on the same theme of, you've talked heavily about that kind of fall of Rome influence. Are there any other historical eras or events that you're trying to really base any other parts off, either big or small, or anything that's kind of influencing you that you haven't really talked about before, that you kind of look forward to people seeing that kind of similar but different from something that happened in history?
I don't know, Dan. I mean, kind of said, tell me out on this one. I mean, we were pretty focused on originally we were thinking about different periods, right? We looked at different periods because essentially, like when my preference in universe creation is to sort of pick a time in history that's pretty interesting, that you think will apply to kind of the situation that you want, and then sort of place that in a fictional sort of future universe, because I always think that like historical situations, when you place it in a future world, they actually make the future world sort of feel real, because it's something that you sort of you just know. It's like, I mean, if you think about like the Foundation trilogy, which is one of the great sci-fi. Actually, it's more than a trilogy now, I guess, but Foundation series, I should say. One of the great sort of sci-fi series, that was based on essentially exactly the same thing. It was the fall and decline of the Roman Empire, and there's quite. I mean, even Star Wars has a certain aspect of that. Yeah, I mean, sort of the earlier stages, right, where it's shifted from a republic to a sort of essentially a dictatorship. So I think we kind of considered. Let's see, what do we consider? We considered...
it was like the 13 Kingdoms of China. Yeah. Where it's like all the warring clans.
And we considered sort of the colonial European powers, more the 16th, 17th, 18th century. But I mean, I think ultimately we sort of fell on this because we thought it had the most possibility and could be the most similar to what we wanted for the UEE. And, we have the Xi'an, which are the proxies for sort of the East, whether it's the Persian Empire or China. And the Vandal are sort of the proxies for the Visigoths and the Vandal. So I'm just trying to think in terms of the rest of it, I mean, we're more, once we've set that up, I think we're kind of just extrapolating what we set up into kind of what logically makes sense. I'm trying to think if we have any other historical...
Not really. I mean, from what I remember, like, when we initially kind of decided that we then, I think, spent a lot of time talking through the, basically what ended up becoming the time capsules, where it was like, just talking out the progression from now until the game starts and figuring out, and it felt like at that point that's where it started to divert from the historical thing and take on a life of its own. So it's like, having the whole Messer era where, humanity sort of succumbed to a dictatorship and then came out of it, and all this type of stuff. So I think at that point, we kind of stopped looking as much on sort of historical references and just started to kind of judge it on its own merits.
Okay. Kind of going back to, I mentioned exploration was something that I particularly was interested in. Are you going to have, you've talked about going out exploring, trying to find things that are valuable or worthwhile of having, and those may be in some of the more dangerous areas. But are there also going to be things more just to see, just for that wow factor of that? You find a new system, and maybe the big deal is that system has a collapsing star, or it's on the edge of a nebula or something, where it's just the awe factor of that Hubble telescope picture right there in your face in game, where maybe you can or cannot actually fly up to it, but just being able to see it and kind of have that essence of being somewhere where in real life we could never go and never see with our own eyes.
So one of the really nice things about CryEngine is that it's like really powerful and it does a whole bunch of really great visual stuff. And so we're pretty focused. I was saying it in the previous sort of Skype interview we were doing, is that a sense of like terrain in space and a sort of beauty to some areas of it. So we'll definitely have sort of some like I guess destinations that you would go for. You know, like kind of the same way you would go. You know, up to the Arctic Circle to see the aurora borealis, or you would go to Niagara Falls or something. So there's definitely going to be that, and we're definitely focusing on actually adding more specific content for people that want to be explorers, because that was actually one of my surprises when we did we did the poll like not that long after we finished the initial campaign, and I think 60-something% of the players said they wanted to be explorers. You know, and I was guessing it was much more oriented towards combat, which you know I thought was super cool. So then we were like, okay, well, you know, it's more than just like discovering jump points and new systems. There's got to be like some other aspects of exploring, charting. Like even known systems, there'll be areas that aren't fully charted, and if you go and fly it, you know, you can chart it, and then once you chart it and find locations, and you can map those in your nav map, and then you can share them with your friends, or you can actually sell it on to a larger group if you want to sell it back, and then other people would have access to that. So they're just, you know, we're focusing on trying to have, you know, a fair amount of things that, for instance, people that just want to do the exploring, mapping, all that kind of stuff, they can do. And part of that will be like some great like locations to go visit. So, you know, that's part of the design philosophy is we're trying to think of ways to get people to fly around the galaxy, not just stay in one area. And so one of them obviously would be sort of like that, you know, go see the 7 wonders of the galaxy kind of aspect of it. The other one would be, you know, not, you know, like you shouldn't be able to just go onto one planet and there's like a superstore that they set by every ship and every weapon. It's like, no, you know, if you want to get this kind, you want to go get an Origin ship, you really want to go to Terra. But if you want to get this kind of ship, you need to go to this other planet. And if you want the best laser gun, it's made by this manufacturer over here. And so, in some ways, you sort of do some flying around the galaxy to essentially build up your ship and kit it out with, you know, the sort of stuff you do. It's not like you just go one-stop shop, or Amazon shows up on your doorstep with, you know, all the pieces for your next build.
Absolutely. Okay. Any chance, you know, obviously you had the limited Vendu skies. Any chance of getting any Banu or Xi'an ships, limited ships at any time before release?
Well, you know, we haven't started the design of like the Banu or the Xi'an ships. We've designed the characters, but we actually, you know, that's something that's part of our you know, asset list to do. So we'll do that, and depending, you know, then. I'm not sure whether we would necessarily make them for sale, but maybe we would for, you know, funding reasons. Just because it's pretty awesome that we're the way we're going, we'll basically be able to fund this completely from the community, and it's a big, huge game. So it's pretty amazing that the power of a community wants to see space sim and to this level of quality that they're willing to back like that, and incredibly thankful to everyone for that. It's amazing, and I think the whole team feels the same way, because it's sort of a dream creative job for us, because it's like we don't really have anyone to answer to except for the community, and the community just wants a really cool game, right? And the community's got lots of great ideas, and so it's a great way. So we may potentially do that, but we have to design the Banu and the Xi'an ships that you're going to be encountering in the Play of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So I won't rule it out, but there isn't like a specific one that we're saying in 3 months' time we're releasing this. So
right. You have a question about customizing skins that you have, as far as not necessarily changing out a skin, but if you have a skin, could you take that same pattern and then just adjust the colors, you know, or add like racing numbers if you have a 350 or an M50, you know, or something like that. You know, like you could, you know, in some other games, you know, take a set of armor and just change the colors on the armor.
So we're definitely going to let you have a certain amount of tweaking in terms of like your decal and maybe some of the base paint jobs. We're still trying to sort of decide how best to do this in game, because, you know, the one problem that we have is, like, I mean, you could let people like custom paint all their ships, but you know, if you had 60 people all show up with custom, I mean, our ships are pretty complex in detail, and they usually have something like 100 megabytes of textures for an individual ship on the high level of detail.
Right.
So, you know, if you had 60 of those, all at 100 megabytes, you basically just burn through 6 gigabytes, and unless you've got a Titan sitting in your machine, you don't have enough video memory for it. Because we all tend, our unique maps on our ship are either 2 or 4K, which are really high in memory usage. So then the resolution would drop down. So we're kind of trying to feel a balance of how do we let the players have some customization versus not like killing texture memory. So I think we're kind of erring on the side of like being able to do racing stripes and changing numbers and applying decals to your ship, and having basic paint schemes that you can say, okay, I can change this from white to red or something, but not to the case where like someone can literally like paint the hull, do a complete custom paint job,
right?
Deal across the hull, because that unfortunately, when if it was a single player game, yes, you could probably be fine with it, but when you don't, everyone could show up with a unique texture, it's kind of could potentially be a problem. So I think we may allow like one custom texture per player that's used for basically their decal sheet, and then they can sort of apply it along the ship where they want it.
Okay. I have a question. You talked about being able to hire NPCs to help crew your ships, and how you could potentially have NPCs that have different skill levels, but even with the best probably not being as good as a player. If say you don't have the funds to hire the best NPC at the beginning, if you stick with one over time, will their skill improve, so that maybe you start out with a guy that's kind of a mediocre turret gunner, but you fly with him for a long period of time and he gets to be to the upper end of what an NPC can be?
I wouldn't rule that out. I guess that's part of like the NPC progression we haven't really thought about. I mean, I think generally our concept was that you basically just sort of hire different grades of NPC, and cheap guys aren't particularly great, and the expensive guys, it's like a quality. It's like, okay, you want the premium, you want the premium dude, or you want the like low rent dude. And the low rent dude just may not be that very good. The premium dude's a much better operator of a turret and has a much higher hit ratio. So I think our original conception was it was sort of static, right? So you basically got what you paid for, and it wasn't like if you had this NPC that was with you for 100 missions, he becomes a better gunner at the end of it. Although that's a cool concept, so I'm not opposed to it. It's really just a matter of every time we add a little extra thing to it, it's just an extra thing to implement, and our list of implementation is pretty big right now. So again, that could be something that may be a later stage feature that gets brought on after the main persistent universe is online.
Okay, and then looking at as far as revenue, obviously doing very well so far, but with the mocap studio, and then we will hit the sound studio, I'm sure, at some point in the near future. Any chance of being able to use those to bring in additional revenue? Because like you said, you wanted to do your own mocap due to the cost of renting equipment.
No, totally. So any money that we bring in for that is just going towards development. So
absolutely.
So we actually already have, I think, a couple of the other developers, because we're the only like mocap, and our mocap system's actually better than a lot of other places because we just got the newest, coolest stuff. But there's already 2 of the Austin studios that need to do some mocap, and normally they would go to LA or Dallas or somewhere to do it. And so I think we're talking to them about doing it. And then even Behavior, who's doing work for us on the game, they've got another game, I think it's an NBA game they're doing that they need some mocap for. So in that case, we actually probably wouldn't pay them. It would be like a barter deal where they're doing work for us, and so we do the mocap for them, and so again that would save money on the game, which is good.
Okay. I'm looking for time real quick.
About 2 minutes left.
All right. Try to hit a couple of real quick, simple questions. You don't have to be any wordier than you want to be. First one, being from Austin and knowing you worked there for many years, what's your favorite local Austin restaurant?
Well, in the old days, I think it was Hudson's on the Bend.
Yeah.
But my old house was like right around the corner from it.
Yeah.
And there was a great Cajun place called Gumbo's, but now I've been back recently. There's a place called Uchi and Uchiko, which is, I was completely shocked because I live here in LA now. They've got great Japanese food, but both those places were pretty outstanding when I went there. I would have never guessed it because Austin's kind of landlocked, so you're not expecting really great fresh fish, but it was pretty awesome. So I would say in Austin right now, I guess I would say Uchi, and then there's another place that I quite like is called Barley Swine, which is like these little craft beers and kind of crazy foodie things that are installed, and that's down I think on I can't remember if it's South Lamar or South Congress. I think South Lamar for Barley Swine. But anyway, so those are my Austin facts.
Space whales, go.
Should I make a space whale noise? Or? No, I don't really have any space whales. Unless you're talking about people buying Corvettes, but I don't. They're not whales. I think what they are people that are supporting the development, and they like supporting it, and I'm happy that they're doing it.
Okay. Any hints as far as for anybody going forward from here that may not be able to make the rest of the full 20 hours, 24 hours? Any particular times you would recommend tuning in?
Let's see. Well, it depends if you're into things. If you want to hear a bunch of technical programming stuff, then you want to probably show up at 2 a.m. If you want to hear the designers talk about designing stuff, then that comes in at 3 a.m. I think we have a second part of art at 4 a.m. Then I know what's happening between 4 and 7, apparently not much. And then I think probably the funnest stuff at the very end, there's we're going to show the 300i full director's cut commercial, which is about twice as long as the current one. Has a whole bunch of shots that people haven't seen, pilots sitting down and taking off in the 300i, which is all pretty cool because it's all in engine. It's all that's the assets, and that's the animation that will be when you sit down in your cockpit. So that's kind of cool. But that's at the very end of the. So you could probably go and catch a few hours sleep, come back and watch that. And then I guess that's kind of. There's it. There's a few things on my schedule, but I actually don't think we're going to be showing them. And we have a making of Hangar video around about 7 a.m. These are all Austin times, so it's about 5 a.m. So.
Well, thank you, Chris. No more questions because I know y'all have a schedule to keep. Just one thing for you. I would recommend that if you are at all a cigar guy, I did send a bunch to Austin, but I can't say how long they'll last in other Chris's humidor, so you might want to let them know if you want any of them saved for you.
Yeah, no, the artists all have a little end of the day cigar smoking ritual they do.
Yeah, I joined them for that when I visited in May.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm there. I'm not there next week, but I'm there the week after. So hopefully, maybe there's a few of them left.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
You're more than welcome. Thank you, Matthew.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with our programmers of CIG. Jason Spangler, our CTO, our lead, Tom Sawyer, Kyle Rockman, Jeff Uriarty, and Brendan Jackson.
Hello.
So, we are here to talk about the process to make Star Citizen happen. Jason, you look very concerned, and you shouldn't. So what happens, Jason? How do you get everybody else to make this happen?
Well, we're starting with CryEngine, as you know, and that's a very big code base. So we are adapting it and adding things needed to it to work for a spaceflight game and also as a large online game with a persistent universe. So we kind of, from the top down, we've looked at that, created a big list of tasks and systems that need done, created, adapted, and now we are working on the ones needed in the beginning for the Hangar app and for other features. And as we get to each one, before we start it, we break it down into much smaller, more detailed tasks, talk about the technical design and the limitations and budgets for the performance, and then we implement and create them by writing code and also reusing existing technology.
All right, so it doesn't look like you're in the Bahamas, though. You're in Montreal, right?
Yes.